All right. So today's presentation, guidelines and strategies for improving usability and accessibility of online courses. And my name is Natalia Kouraeva, and this is our objectives for the day, for this session. We will discuss accessibility and usability. We will share strategies for creating usable and accessible courses. So let's start. We'll start with definition. What do we mean when we say usability? Well, when we talk about web product and websites, usability or any kind of product, usability refers to how easy a product to use, how easy it's to use for any consumer. So when we apply the same concept to online courses, its usability measures how well a learner can access and use the online content to achieve their learning goals effectively, efficiently, and satisfactorily. So, as I mentioned, we're going to talk about usability and accessibility, and they're very closely related. So, let's define accessibility. Accessibility means that people with disability can do whatever they need to do in a similar amount of time and effort as someone who does not have a disability. I want to remind you that about 26%, almost one quarter of adults, have some type of disability. Some disability permanent, some are temporarily, some disability can be visible and others not. But we have to keep in mind when we creating courses that we probably will have adults or learners with disability in every course we teach. So accessibility and usability are very important to make sure that everybody have equal and fair opportunity to learn. Since we're discussing accessibility, I want to mention a couple of things about assistive technology. First of all, what is screen reader? Why do we need to be concerned about it? Screen reader is software that converts digital text into synchronized speech. There's some other devices, assistive technology available, as you can see them listed on this slide. But I want to again bring your attention to screen readers because if person is not able to see your material, of course, they're using screen readers, so we have to be aware of that as we continue working and making our courses accessible. As I mentioned previously, accessibility and usability, they kind of go hand in hand together, and this chart really does express the relationship quite well. Accessibility relates to the technical side of web-based course. So basically how we set it up, how we set up headers, how we provide all text, how we provide closed captions, all of those details are important. And usability relates to the quality of a learner's experience when interacting with the content. So we have to have a goal and try to achieve it so our courses are usable and accessible. So it is great if you have an opportunity to design your course from the beginning and you keep these concepts of usability and accessibility in your mind from the beginning. That would be probably easier to start building your course and design your course with those concepts in your mind. However, it is not impossible to go back to already available course, created course earlier and correct some of the things and improve some of the things to make it more usable and more accessible. And we'll talk about some tools that can help us with that. Consistency is another very important guideline to keep in mind because consistent design and structure help learners to navigate with ease throughout your course. What does it mean being consistent? It means that from page to page, from module to module, from document to document, you should have the same type of structure, same format, same kind of style elements that the whole course would feel very coherent and consistent. So sometimes we offer using templates and that's really helped to achieve the consistency of the courses. Let me see, I'm going to share with you another part of my screen to show you a little bit of the course itself to give you example. Let's see. So this is just example of one of the courses that we teach here at Teaching and Learning with Technology, and this course for accessibility and principles of UDL. But the reason I want to show it to you because it's utilizes very simple template and it's provide that consistency that I was just mentioning. As you see, each module starts with overview, activities, learning objectives, principles. So if we open this, you can see that each module has learning objectives and describes activity. Then it's followed by lecture and additional materials provided by reading and different multimedia. And we go on like that. And then we get to discussions and assessments or assignment in each module. The module 2 has this exactly the same structure and module 3 has exactly the same structure. So which means that students can get used to particular structure and they can navigate throughout the whole course much easier. So let me now go back to my presentation and we'll continue there. Okay. So another very important element of accessible and usable courses is clear and concise content. What do we mean by clear and concise? It means that we should write for understanding. So it will be easier to understand what is written for learners. That means organize your text into chunks. Don't have students to deal with very long, pages and pages of documents without any kind of breaks or header or titles. Could feel intimidating and also just difficult to absorb and understand. Instead, break your text into chunks, into little portions, and provide titles or links or subheaders. We will talk about that. I'll show you in a minute. Another thing to keep in mind is that to use appropriate for the content and audience language. Sometimes we have to introduce new terminology or new concept, and that's okay, as long as we provide links to definitions or provide glossary or kind of explain that new term to your audience. That's again what help them to understand that. Don't just throw some of the professional jargon without really offering that support. And of course, use purposeful styling. We do not want to style for our courses to look pretty. We do not want to, make color just because we prefer that particular color. We have to use all of those elements with purpose and only as necessary. Do not overdo that. All right, check, check, check. Use spelling and grammar checkers before you publish your content. For example, you can use spelling checker in Microsoft Word document, in PowerPoints. You can use spell checker and grammar checkers in Canvas, but you also can use external apps. Like, for example, Grammarly is very popular app. I like to use it. It checks your spelling, grammar, sometimes provides you with suggestions about the style. English is my second language, and some things, sometimes I miss article or I put wrong article instead of the correct one. And Grammarly helps me to keep that in check and fix it before I make text available to students. If you belong to Rutgers family, you are very lucky. This is my gift for you for today. You can sign up to Grammarly and get full access if you use your Rutgers email, and you can use the code Go Rutgers. If you are not belong to Rutgers faculty, I hope you will, find a way for full access anyway, and maybe talk to your organization and see if they can have the contract with Grammarly. Even though we're talking about just usability of courses and accessibility, I want to bring a special attention for assessment and assignments, because assessment and assignments is a very important part of any course. If you are students, that's one of those things that you worry the most about, right? Can I submit my assignments? What do I do? How do I follow? How do I meet all the requirements? So as we're creating courses, we have to be very careful, especially when we teach online, that assignments have very clear instructions. You have to write out everything to the detail, because unlike in face-to-face teaching, we do not have an opportunity to explain something as we assign it in a classroom. So all of those little explanations has to be have to be provided in advance and in writing. Make sure your students understand what they need to do, and also how to submit assignment, what are the expectations. Another good idea here to using rubrics to communicate your requirements. Not only it will explain to students what you will be looking at to grade them, but it also will make it easier for you to grade consistently and pay attention to every detail, regardless if you grading it all at once, or maybe you grade some submitted work at different times. If possible, I always encourage faculty members to provide examples. There's nothing more useful for students than examples. So if you're able to create assessments that are authentic and they require creativity, and for example, students using their specific individualized topic that they selected, there's nothing wrong with providing examples from previous round of your course. Of course, please ask permission of your previous students. And I never had problem. Everybody agreed to, for me to use samples of the previous work. When I was a student, I was asked many times if my assignments can be used, and usually students react very well to that. And then it provides your current students great way to kind of look through the examples, look through what other students done who received a high grade, and that really helped them to brainstorm what they need to do and how to accomplish their assignments today. So it's helped them to have that course as usable and as possible. And just as a reminder, design a well-balanced mix of low and high stakes assessment, which means not only you want to have one or two huge assessments and the whole grade of the course will be based on that. You won't allow students to kind of low stake assessments where they can just practice their learning, where they can just kind of show you what they're doing, like maybe divide the larger assignment into different drafts, so you can provide feedback, provide them short quizzes, maybe not even graded quizzes or open book quizzes. All of that allows students to become more comfortable and using course and using content that you are teaching them. And then when it's time for the final grade, it will be fair grade, because maybe somebody is very good at writing and but not at taking tests, and vice versa. So if you have a mix of different types of assessments, that would be a useful and fair way to assess students' knowledge. All right, let's go back to usability and accessibility. When you present content in your courses, make sure that you present them in multimodal ways. That means that you should provide alternative means of access to the course material and offer the same content in more than one mode. For example, if you're providing text, make sure that it's searchable, and that means that students can also hear it. They could use a read speaker, and they could hear the content. If you're offering a video clip or audio segment, make sure that your video clip has closed captions and transcript. Your audio segment, such as blog, podcast, will have a transcript. So if students not comfortable listening to the content, or maybe it's not the best way they can at the moment take it in, they can also scroll down and follow along written content of the same thing. And same thing, if you're using images, of course, you would like to provide alternative text. So for people who are not able to see image, they can read alternative text. We call it alt text, and they can understand the meaning and purpose of the image here. Another thing that I would like to mention is how to focus your students' attention. Very often, we provide a lot of materials, but there are certain portions of the content are more important than the other, and you want to make sure that students recognize that. So you can use stylistic elements such as italic, bold, or different color. You can use very brief and careful animation. Don't overdo with animation. Or you can also just provide differently styled content. Um, and chunk, break your long documents or pages into shorter sessions with appropriate headings, and you can get attention of people to the particular portion of the document that way. Also, don't be shy. You can just simply write out the word attention. You can put googly eyes. Is that what is suitable for your content? You can put maybe arrow, any kind of thing that will bring attention to a particular portion of the document or course. I would encourage you to do that. So again, let me get out of this for a minute, and I will show you how we can practically do that. So let me switch the sharing into. Okay, so this is just sample document, and if you want to bring attention to a particular portion of the document, you can just simply write it out, pay attention, and you can say accessibility. You can create a text box and put different background than the rest of the document. So there's a variety of ways how you can bring attention to a particular portion of the document or of your assignment or of your material that you are sharing with your students. All right, let me jump again into presentation now. So as I mentioned previously, use accessibility checkers. Accessibility checkers are great helpers. You think of them as your friends. Find them in any application that you're using to create your content. If you're using your Microsoft Word document, find them before you start and check them. They are great. And wonderful part about that is how accessibility checkers can guide you through the steps you need to take in order to fix them. I will go back to that and demonstrate it after I am done with presentation, so we'll save a little bit of time. So find this tool, run it to make sure that all accessibility errors contained in document are identified and corrected. Of course, do that before you publish your materials. You can also take advantage of a wonderful tool if you are using Canvas like we do here at Rutgers. Just recently we obtained access and complete use of this tool. It's called Ally Course Accessibility Report. Again, I will go back to my course and show it to you at the end of the presentation, but this is basically just a little screenshot of that report that shows you what you have in your document. And the wonderful thing about this Ally Course Accessibility Report that it checks all course content, not only your pages, as some other accessibility checkers, but it also will check any uploaded documents that you are using as part of your course. And it does offer excellent step-by-step explanation on how to fix issues. You will have a choice to either start with easy to fix choices, or you will have a choice to start and fix the most serious issue. So either way, you can go step by step and take your time and fix all accessibility issue. As I mentioned, I will open the course and show you how it looks and how does it work very briefly. Another thing to remember that we have a webinar specifically designed to show you how to use Ally Course Accessibility Report, and I always encourage you to take one of those webinars. Document updates and accessibility. It's often very forgotten kind of element of accessibility, but I do encourage you to always date your documents and make sure that you put new date. If you updated some document or updated your course, make sure you include your last updated date. It will help students to see that they're working with accurate material, but it also will help you to ensure that you actually attach the correct document and not the one from 5 years ago that just happened to sit in your file system. Provide also, if you're using any tools in your courses, for example, if you're using PlayPosit or if you're using VoiceOver or any kind of other teaching tool, Hypothesis and any other ones, make sure that you provide link to an accessibility statement of all tools used in your in your courses. So those kind of two simple things are very, very useful for students who will need to access these particular tools. If you require student input and you offer them some kind of form and asking them to provide input, filling out the field, make sure that you create your forms in a way that they're error tolerant and they can validate input right away. So don't have students go through the whole form and then at the end tell them that everything was filled out wrong. For example, if the field is expecting name and students start typing their birthday, and immediately you can set it up in a way that field would be validated and the error will be provided immediately, so a person can quickly fix it and the rest of them will go in the correct way. Also provide adequate instructions for students how to fill it out, what you're expecting from them. It's also a good idea to tell them how long approximately it will take if it's more than one screen, because it could be frustrating. You think, okay, you have just a couple of fields here, but then it's go on and on and on, and it's 20 minutes later and you're still working on the same form. So give them adequate instructions and what to expect. Also give students complete control over the time when they, when you change the content. So don't just quickly change it automatically. Don't have your video clips playing automatically or anything like that. Allow them to choose their speed and give them that control how to move through the course and material. Feedback loop, very important, and again, often forgotten. Feedback loop means that you create a mechanism, some kind of reporting mechanism for any inaccessible content. For example, you can create a simple discussion and ask students that if they come across of any inaccessible part of the course, please to report it here, and you can monitor it and go ahead and quickly fix it. Or you can give them a mail where you would like to have this type of information to be sent. So you have, again, information and you can quickly react and help them to make sure that they can access everything that they need to be successful in your course. All right, now we're gonna move on to a little bit more practical portion of this session. I will talk about some of the accessibility details, and hopefully at the end I can show it to you in a document and in course. So one of the simplest and quick and easy things you can do is use titles and subtitles for structure. So we call them headings. It's a term that used in Microsoft. And please take a look at the right side example here. This is a good example of different headings. So for example, privacy policy, that would be our title. So if you're using Microsoft Word document, you can simply select, you can highlight that and select it as a title. I will show you how to do it in a few minutes. Your information we collect, it would be your heading number 1. And then in a sequential order, you have to use your headings. There would be personal information collection, and in the same level, non-personal information collection. So if you identified all of these headings, person who is using screen reader, they would be able to recognize it and use these headings and subheadings just like a table of content, and they can go and select appropriate place in the document where they would like to read it or review it, and just like we would open book and look at the table of content and find the appropriate page, these headers and subheaders will help a person with using screen reader to find that appropriate place. So think of your document as a complete book and divide it into chapter and sub-chapter, parts and different sections in the document to create that easy to navigate, easy to read, easy to go back and review kind of documents. If you're creating lists, again, if person is not able to see that it's a list, you want to make sure that you create it in a way that has tags behind the page, and people with screen readers can recognize it as a list. And the best thing to do it is not to hand number them. Don't start typing 1 point space. Instead, write out your list completely and then use menu on the Microsoft Word document. Use menu to create a list, and then it would be appropriately created list. Accessible tables, same idea. They could seem difficult, but actually, if you use your tables properly, which means to present related data sets, then your tables will be again very, very accessible. Make sure that you use header, your first row and the first column for the data labels, so you can easily do that with table design option, and this way it would be automatically already accessible table. So if you remember, like if you remember two things from this presentation, I recommend one is to remember is always use the built-in tools in any editing program. Always do not do things manually, but instead do everything in using menus. Select accessible style. This is also very important. As you see on this example on the right, we have terrible paragraph that is very hard to read, very hard to understand. It has all kind of colors and changes and just very difficult to comprehend. So don't do that, please. And instead focus on keeping everything simple. And one thing to remember is that font and color have to have a good contrast between them. For example, if your background is white, your high contrasting color of the font would be black or maybe dark blue, and the other ways around. If you have a very dark background, you might want to use a very light letter. You can always find the documents find the tools online to check your contrast. This is the first row here is a good high contrasting colors, and the second row is here is the poor low contrasting colors. But you can always select accessible style and to add visual cues. Again, as you remember, we talked about bringing attention to important parts of the document, so you can use bold, italic, or underline, and avoid using only color, because if person does not see the color the same way you do, or they have complete color blindness, they will not be able to see the emphasis that you are placing on the particular portion of the document. So you can combine. You can use the color, but you can also combine additional style elements. Sometimes we need to highlight important information, and it's a little bit longer than just phrase or a few words. In that case, I recommend you to use a text box and maybe add different color of the background, so it's really stand out on the page, just like you see here on the right example here. You can also add exclamation point, word important, or arrows, or anything like that to bring the attention to this portion. Links. We always encourage faculty to provide links and provide additional resources for learners to continue their learning even after they finish with your content that you created for them. So links, it's very important that you create meaningful links, which means descriptive links. Right here in the first example, we see link that tells us exactly where we would go if we click on that link. We would visit a page with the directions on how to create a hyperlink. So this is a good example. I recommend you to do that. So easiest way to do it, to open your web page where you want to send your users, copy the title of that web page, paste it on your document, then go back to your web page, select URL, come back to your document, and use the menu. Again, we're talking about using built-in tools. Use the menu and insert that link and insert that address. So please don't do click here, click here, click here, because could be it's not clear where we're gonna go if we just click here. So for person who using screen reader, it would be very useless pretty much. One thing I want to mention, that if you're using your document in addition to digital presentation, maybe use it as a handout. So you may have people who just have your paper. So make sure that you create your descriptive link, but also add URL maybe in parentheses next to it, so they can still visit that link as necessary. Okay, using accessible images, very important. Images could have a few different assets to them, such as file name, title text. That is not useful for a person with a screen reader. Instead, the only way they can gain meaning from that image is by using information provided by you in alt text. Male line with sports main standing on a dry rocky ground. So that would be appropriate alt text for this particular image. Images, actually, it's a whole art how to create alt text, because it's not just simple description. Sometimes it really depends why you're using image and content, in what content you're using it. So it's important that we don't just rely on automatically created alt text, but we also really review them and make correction. So alt text is a contraction of alternative text. It's a brief written description of an image which makes sense of that image when it cannot be viewed. So to create a good alt text, make sure to be specific, be very brief, explain type of the image. For example, it's headshot or illustration or chart or screen grab, instead of general explanation that it's image of or picture of. Don't use just a lot of different keywords. You want to write it in, again, clear and easy to understand, maybe phrase or a small, very short description. So if image has any kind of text as part of that image, you want to include it in your alt text. And also, if you're using images as a decorative images, just basically to make look something pretty, or just provide an additional kind of illustration, you don't have to write the alt text, but you need to select the checkbox where it says decorative image, and this way user with screen reader will just simply skip that and not waste their time. This is a good example of alt text. So close up of a bare face. That's all we need to know. There's other not such a good examples, too long or just a bunch of keywords. We don't want to do that. Sometimes we have to provide very complex graphics, and just adding alt text next in alt text would not be enough, just not enough room there, right? In that case, we will use two-part text alternatives, and in a short description that you will place in alt text field, you will identify the image and explain where to look for a long description. The long description is actually a textual representation of that information conveyed by the image, would be written out maybe right under the image or next to it, but you will identify where it's located in your alt text. So that include your long description as part of the main content. Adding descriptive caption. So this is example of how it's done, for example. And moving to the next portion, using PDF. We are using PDF and courses a lot, and that's wonderful. We just have to make sure that all of your PDF are accessible. And one of the main things to make them accessible is make sure that they're searchable. So if you lucky and you have your document that is already very accessible and you checked it with accessibility checkers, you can just simply create a PDF out of that document. But I recommend you to use Save As option instead of Print option. This way you have you can select to create accessible PDF, and your students will be very happy with that version. If you just have scans or copies of the documents or articles, they are not accessible. You cannot just attach a scan or copy made in the copy machine. Why they're not accessible? Because they are missing OCR, optical character recognition. There's no tags behind that. They don't translate when you just copy a document. There's still a solution, and you can use Adobe to create a searchable PDF. and it's not very difficult to do. And again, we do have more detailed webinar, and you're welcome to join us. We can show that step by step. Meanwhile, I want to move on to video and audio. Video and audio materials must include caption and transcript, and again, not one or another. For video clips, we always encourage you to use closed captions. And again, we have wonderful tools here at Rutgers. And with Kaltura, if you're recording your lecture with Kaltura, there is an option to create auto captions. However, they're not always accurate, depending on your accent, or maybe you didn't say something very clearly, or microphone didn't pick up something very specific sound. So you always need to go and first loop you will do, you will order captions, and the second loop you will go and edit them to check your captions, make sure that it's really accurate. And if you have captions done, you can create a transcript and perhaps edit right below the video clip, or maybe provide a link to the document that has a transcript. So it's very important to provide both. I know it's a lot of material and I went very fast, but I want to do, I hope that instead of being overwhelmed, you will actually be empowered to take certain steps, and from I can't, you can go to I can. So start with basic. Make sure you focus on your concise and clear writing. Make sure that you're using headers and subheaders and consistent structures to navigate the content of the course and documents. Make sure that you, next step, you provide alternative graphic text, alt text for your images. And understand that sometimes it's not possible just sit down and one evening and fix everything in the course and make it usable and accessible. But as you continue learning, recognize that it's a process, and it's going to take maybe few iterations to go through certain portions of your course. Acknowledge your accomplishments and allow time for continuous learning, and ask for help. I'm not done, although I'm done with the presentation. I'm going to show you right now. I'm going to share the course and the document, and I will be able to review your comments. Give me just a second. I will share different way that we have to share now. And this, in this case, I'm gonna share with you. I'm gonna share with you this web page, which is my document. Again, this is the just sample course that we teach here. First thing I want to show you in this course is how you can use Ally Course Accessibility Report. You see it right here in the menu, and if you don't see it, you need to go to your settings. You can go to navigation, and you find your accessibility report. In this case, it's located right here in my first rectangle, and that's why I see it on my menu here. But if it's not here, and maybe it was somewhere over here, so you just simply find it, grab it, and put it where you want to have it on the first portion, and you should be able to have it. I don't need to save it, but you do. When you go back, you please make sure you save it. So when you get to that and you have your Ally Course Accessibility Report available, this is how it's going to look. It's going to tell you everything that you have in your course, and you can start with easiest to fix issues to fix, or you can fix low scoring content first. Let me just quickly show you. If you just start here, for example, what's happened here, screenshot. Let's take a look. Well, it's this image missing a description, so that's mean that you can go ahead and add your description right here, and you can also have some information how to write a good description. Again, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but it is very useful tool, and we do have a webinar taught by our technologists, and they can show you and explain all kind of things, how in the best way to use that. Another thing that I wanted to share with you is document. Well, actually, I can do it even in Canvas. Let me do it in Canvas, and same very similar way you can do it in Microsoft Word. So right here we are in the document, and let me show you how simple to do your do your heading. So this is would be your title, right? This is the title of my document. You have a menu. Always go back to your menus, click on the menu, and you can select that to be your title, just like that. This is would be my next header. And again, I'm going to go to the menu and select it to be heading 1. It's already set that way. This would be also heading 1 because it's on the same level. So just basically using and clicking appropriate subheader, nominations would make your make it very, very accessible. So we talked about the list. If you select your list or your agenda or whatever that you want to put in a list, again, using the menu will make it accessible. You can select what kind of list you want to have. It can be different formatted list. It's just like that becomes accessible a list. This is image, and if you click on the right hand button and you scroll down and you view all text, or sometimes it says edit all text, this is right here. You have an opportunity to create your alt text. So if it's already automatically created, it's not enough because it just tells me that it's shaped. So we won't take this out, and instead we can describe it more meaningfully. So maybe it's an icon of accessibility. And that's all you have to do. If you think that this image was just, for decorative purposes, you don't need to write anything in alt text, but you have to click mark as decorative, and this way the screen reader will just simply skip it. This is our table. As I mentioned before, the tables can be very nicely done and become accessible if you are using your table menu, and you will use your let me go to tables here. Let's say right here, if you're using your table, you can select it and click on table designs, and again you can choose any kind of format you like, but in this case your head row already identified and your first column identified, and the screen reader will recognize it that this first column and first row will have information about the labels for each of the cells. So it's not very difficult. It is time consuming, but again, don't forget about your friends. If you go to if you finish your document, make sure you do your spelling and grammar, and make sure you do your check accessibility. And when you check your accessibility, you will be able to find errors and follow guidance in the document how to in this case it was all correct, but if there's an issue, you will be able to follow the step-by-step right here. So let me go back to the course for a minute. Let me reshare differently again. Stop sharing. Start different sharing. There you go. And here we are. And let me go back to the course itself and show you a couple of things here. For example, if you like to set your headings right here, you click on your page, you always go into edit first, and this, as I mentioned previously, module 1, this would be title, so header 1 considered to be title in Canvas, but this is where you start setting your headers. So this would be your heading 2, and right here you have a menu, you have heading 2, and then you go further down, and perhaps you will have opportunity to set your heading 3. And there's examples of video clips, and if you start playing any of these video clips, you will notice that the closed caption will come right here, and that would be available for anybody who playing this video clip. I'm not going to play the clip, but again, make sure that you have closed caption, and you also provide the transcript for each of the video clip. Let's see what else I want to show here that we discussed. Well, let me go back for a minute and see what questions we have, and perhaps I will be able to respond to that. So I'm going to stop sharing and take a look at yes, at the beginning of our chat, I provided a link to my slides, so you're welcome to download them from there or take a look. Okay, so Omar, we have a few different comments here. So when you're creating a page in Canvas, do you use embedded heading styles in order to achieve accessibility? Is it ever appropriate to use HTML to set up heading sizes? Very good question. Well, when you create a page, pages can be variable. If you have a particular template, you can use that if it already has set up headers, but it's also very straightforward to set your own headers. And let me go back, since you mentioned HTML, I'm going to jump back into course just for a second to show you HTML and how the headers look behind it. So let me share this again. All right, so let's say we click on any page. In this case, it's a module overview and learning objective principles, right? We're going to click on edit. And again, we know that this is our heading 2. We see it right here. It's heading 2, right? And this would be our heading 3. We see it right here, heading 3. Okay. So what I want to show you is if you put your HTML here, this is what's happening. This is, we create tag. As we identify those as header 2 and header 3, this tag shows up. So when person using screen reader, they come along and they recognize that as it being header 2, or this is being header 3, this is paragraph, this is list, and things like that. So they can easily feel the format of the document and take advantage of that, just like anybody else who can see the document, and that's make it accessible. So you can use a template. If you, for example, use your template for overview for every module, that's fine. You might have every module have certain headings set up, but if not, you can always go ahead and set up heading in every page. Let me go back and check on another question. Thank you for spending time talking about document design principles. My pleasure, Jen. Thank you so much for paying attention to that. Are there any specific colors to avoid when creating headings in Canvas? Well, there's no specific colors to avoid. The main thing to ensure that there's a good contrast. For example, if you using gray font on a yellow background, most people will have very hard time reading it. Or sometimes it's even difficult to read the page when it's like white background, but it's very light gray lettering, font. Sometimes I have to copy it and paste it in a Microsoft Word and make it dark block so I can just simply read it. We want to make it as easy as possible for users to read and access and use the course materials. So it's not a specific color. It's just making sure that there's a good contrast between the colors. So that's probably would be the most important part. I'm sorry, but I have to leave that. Thank you so much. Okay, so that was just thank you, and Jen left us. That's okay. If you have any other questions, please make comments or put them now. We probably have another couple of minutes. And if not, you are very much invited to reach out to us, and we can work with you on your courses, on your design, on accessibility, on usability. All of these things are in something that we love to do, and we would love to assist you in making sure that your courses are accessible and usable and well designed and well balanced, and we can brainstorm together. We can bring some additional tools into your courses. We can use quality meta standards to evaluate your course and find the areas that need to be maybe slightly improved. So we welcome you at any point. Feel free to contact us, and I really appreciate the fact that you stayed so late and stayed with us to the end. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Natalia. I think we have, if you have a chance, just for one last question, comes from Karen Wicks in the Q&A section.
Okay.
Hey, I always struggle deciding when an image is considered decorative. Any tips or general rules of thumb for that?
Well, if you think about the image and you think that your content will not suffer without it, so then it's probably decorative. Like if you can convey the information without that image just as well, then you can just identify it as decorative. But if your image is providing additional information, and if person does not see that image, they will not get the full content, then of course it's not decorative. Then you want to make sure that you provide meaningful alt text, so everybody have a chance to get the meaning of that image. It's not a fast rule there. You really have to use your own sense of your own content. Thank
Uh,
you.
and
Thank
yeah,
you, everybody. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you at the closing.